الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين. اللهم لك الحمد يا ربنا كله ولك الشكر كله وإليك يرجع الأمر كله علانيته وسره إنك على كل شيء قدير. لك العتبى يا ربنا حتى ترضى ولا حول ولا قوة لنا إلا بك. اللهم يا ربنا إنا نحمدك حمدا كثيرا طيبا طاهرا دائما مباركا فيه ملء السماوات وملء الأرض وملء ما بينهما وملء ما شئت يا ربنا من شيء بعد. أنت أهل الثناء والمجد أحق ما قال العبد وكلنا لك عبد. اللهم لا مانع لما أعطيت ولا معطي لما منعت ولا ينفع ذا الجد منك الجد. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبد الله ورسوله وصفيه من خلقه وحبيبه. بلغ الرسالة وأدى الأمانة ونصح الأمة وكشف الغمة وجاهد في الله حق الجهاد حتى أتاه اليقين. اللهم صل وسلم وزد وبارك على الحبيب المصطفى وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن اهتدى بهديه وعمل بسنته إلى يوم الدين. وارض عنا معهم بفضلك وكرمك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم آمين. I praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator of heavens and earth, the provider, the cherisher, the sustainer, the bestower of bounties, the giver of gifts, the acceptor of repentance. Endless He is in His glory. I bear witness that there is no deity worthy of worship save Allah. And I bear witness that Muhammad is Allah's final prophet and messenger, the bearer of glad tidings, and the role model to be followed, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him and his family, his companions and followers, and all men and women that strive to walk in their footsteps. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make each and every one of us among them. Allahumma ameen. My dear brothers and sisters, I greet you with the greeting of Islam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I was in an attendance of a social gathering recently. And as it is our habit at those social gatherings, men are usually in one area, women are in another area, and then the children are together in a third space. So naturally, I was spending most of my time with the men at that social gathering. And then we were talking about the things that men usually talk about. We were talking about the politics of the old country. We were talking about sectarian religious differences. We were talking about sports that are never practiced in the US. And we were talking about a multitude of very interesting topics for us immigrants. And then I got tired of the conversation because it's repeating the same thing over and over and over again every single time we get together. So I decided to go spend some time with the youth. And to the contrary, the youth were talking about 95% football. And then a little bit of basketball. They talked about movies, they talked about songs and popular culture, and they did not address a single topic that their parents were talking about. I did not go on the sisters' side, so I don't know what they're talking about over there. Probably subjects that are also interesting to women who are from the immigrant community. I don't know, I attend a lot of those events, but it was that night that the discrepancy of those conversations really struck me. And I noticed that many of us are immigrants, right? And we are proud of that. We are proud of who we are, where we came from. We're proud of our effort, coming to this country, establishing ourselves from scratch. There's no doubt about that. The immigrant community has every reason to be proud. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed us with this really diverse experience, and that is precisely what makes us successful in this country. You look, for example, at the Arabs. The Arabs will always talk about the Arab-Israeli conflict. We will always talk about Palestine. We will always talk about Israel. We'll always talk about Jerusalem, al-Masjid al-Aqsa, and all these matters. Arabs will continue to talk about the Arab Spring or the failure thereof. The Arabs will continue to talk about European soccer because we love it so much. A lot more than, soccer that is practiced by Arab countries themselves. The Arabs will continue to talk about dictatorships, will continue to talk about tyranny, will continue to talk about economic problems, right? That's what Arabs talk about. The Arabs will talk about Sisi. They will talk about ISIS. Both are really two sides of the same coin when you think about it. The Arabs will continue to talk about Sunni and Shia differences and so on and so forth. The South Asians will continue to talk about the matters that are important to them. They will talk about Kashmir. They will talk about the ISI. They will talk about the conflict between India and Pakistan. They will talk about cricket. They will talk about, the Ahmadis. Like the Ahmadiyya movement exists in the South Asian Peninsula. It doesn't exist in the Arab world. So Arabs don't talk about it. But the South Asian community talks about the Ahmadiyya movement and the Ahmadiyya influence on politics and all that stuff all the time. The African American community, if you attend their gatherings, they're talking about racism, they're talking about social justice, they're talking about police brutality, they're talking about the things that are important to them, that are felt on a day-to-day basis by that particular ethnic community. And the funny thing is that all these ethnic communities within our wider, beautiful Muslim community, they continue to bicker with each other about determining the discourse that must be addressed. So the Arabs want everyone else to talk about Palestine. And the South Asians, they want everyone else to talk about Kashmir. And the African Americans want everyone else to talk about police brutality and social justice, right? And rightly so, because it's a matter that is so important to them, so they want that to be the subject of conversation within our Muslim community. But then I realized something that is extremely important, and that is why I'm talking about the khutbah today. I realized that the American Muslim youth are completely disconnected from all of these conversations. They don't want to talk about Palestine. They don't want to talk about Kashmir. They don't want to talk about police brutality. They're completely sick and tired of the conversations and the subjects that are not relevant to them. What they want to talk about is the frivolous things that I shared with you earlier. And we end up in a situation where the Muslim community is on the heels of one of the most consequential elections in our country's history, and we continue to be irrelevant. We continue to be unmentioned. We are absent from the table. We have no impact whatsoever. I mean, if we cannot have an impact during this election season with everything that has been going on, when will we ever, as a Muslim community, have an impact? And that is the question that I raise. But here's the thing. I spent years of my life trying to preach the notion that all of us are American Muslims. We need to cast aside, our immigrant mentality. We need to cast aside, the issues of the back home and focus on American issues. I preached that for so many years. And I realized that that is really a fool's errand, because it's never going to happen. I'm never going to be able to convince the South Asians to stop caring about the matters that they care about. And I will never be able to ask the African American Muslims to stop caring about the issues that they need to care about, or the Arabs to stop caring about the things that they need to care about. I can't do that, and it's not fair to even attempt to do that. It is not fair to do that. I realize it's really a fool's errand. It's a complete waste of time. What is the solution then? You and I may not have any impact on the upcoming elections. That is a fact that is absolutely true. Aside from voting, which I've preached before, that while I think it's almost an obligation to vote for us as Muslims, if you're an American citizen, it is a near obligation to vote. I really think that this particular elections that's coming up, I really think it's almost haram not to vote in the upcoming elections. Okay? Aside from voting, I and you know all too well that we will not have an impact as an American Muslim community. We neither have the institutions or the organization or the outreach efforts and resources. We just don't. We don't. That's the reality, and I am willing to accept that reality under one condition, that we make sure that our children, inshallah ta'ala, one day will have a much better impact than the one we are having now. If we cannot have that impact because we are so vested in the challenges of our ethnic communities, and I said earlier that it's okay to do that. We are a young community in America, and our immigrants will always care about the issues of the back home. That's inevitable, right? You invite the Arabs to a concert about Palestine, all of them are going to be there. But you invite them to a fundraising event for Kashmir, they will never attend, and vice versa. That's the reality. I am just articulating it, but it's true. You and I know that this is the truth. Our ethnic communities worry about their own issues, but I want to make sure that our children and our grandchildren will become invested in the affairs of their country, so that when they reach the age of maturity, inshallah ta'ala, they actually have an impact. The Muslim community is not going to be marginalized. When my kids have graduated college, when your kids have graduated college, our community is not marginalized. Our community is not neglected. That our voice actually matters. That our words will have a reach in this society. Okay? How can we achieve that? That's the question. You and I can continue to be involved in the affairs of our own country. Still, once in a while, we will talk about Trump, we will talk about Hillary Clinton, we will talk about the elections, that's fine. Once in a while, we will attend the care banquets and we will donate to a great cause. Once in a while, we will register, with the Democratic Party or whatever it is. We're still a tiny bit involved in our local affairs here in the community. We bring politicians to speak, school district or city council or whatever. I'm not saying that we're completely disconnected. I am just saying in our hearts, we worry a lot more about the issues of the back home than the issues of our community. And that's the reality. I need to accept that. What I cannot accept is to allow our children to be entangled in these same petty challenges. So that when they grow up, they don't belong to the Arab culture, they don't belong to Pakistani culture, they belong to nothing. They contribute nothing to this society, they contribute nothing to the back home, they don't understand their original language, they don't understand this language, nothing. They just become, consumers. And they live the materialistic life. And you and I know that is exactly what is happening to American Muslim youth today. They're not able to relate to the issues of their society. They're not able to relate to the culture of their parents. So they choose to just do their own thing and lead a life that is disconnected from any values or principles. Those of you who have young children right now may not really see that, but I see it. You know why? Wallahi, brothers and sisters, every single week, I get parents who come to me in tears telling me about how their teenage children have strayed from the path, or have renounced the deen, or are leading a completely disconnected life, are not able to choose a career, they're not able to choose a spouse, they don't even have the bare minimum requirements for success. And I asked them, where were you for the last 15 years? Before your child became a teenager? Where were you? Where were you? I haven't seen you before. Why are you coming to me when it's too late? Why are you coming to me when things are going out of control and completely out of hand and you can't do anything about it? When you've tried everything, you come to the imams and to the scholars in order to get some magical help. It's not going to happen. I'm sorry. Because you've sown the seeds of this destruction over the past 15 years when you have done nothing to invest in the lives of your own children. You can't come to me when it's too late. So what is the solution? Let me pose the question so that we're not just talking. What is the solution? The immigrant community continues to worry about its own issues. I get that. I understand it. I respect it. American-born, citizens, the Latino Muslims will continue to talk about immigration. African-American Muslims will continue to talk about police brutality. Sure, I get it. But what is the solution so that we make sure that our children, the American-born Muslim children that will grow up one day, are actually caring about propelling our community forward? How can we achieve that? And the answer came from the most unexpected of places. I was doing research a couple of weeks ago about the life of Imam Muhammad ibn Jarir al-Tabari. And I realized some beautiful gems that I would like to share with you, inshallah ta'ala, today. Muhammad ibn Jarir al-Tabari, his kunya, the nickname that people gave him is Abu Ja'far. Okay? Al-Tabari, by the way, never got married. He never got married, never had any children. Why do they call him Abu Ja'far? Because it's the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ to have a kunya. The Prophet ﷺ, even little children, he would give them that kunya, you know, that nickname, Abu something, right? Even though he's not a father of anyone yet. But it's sunnah for us to be Abu something. So it's not just an Arab thing. This is sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, right? So he called himself Abu Ja'far, even though he did not have a child by the name of Ja'far, but he called himself Abu Ja'far. Abu Ja'far, Muhammad ibn Jarir al-Tabari, radiyallahu anhu. Born in Tabaristan, not Tabariya. There's Tabariya in Palestine. He was born in Tabaristan, which is a huge province in the northern parts of Iran, present-day Iran, you know, over the Caspian Sea. Beautiful, mild weather year-round over there. Grew up in a Persian family. Both of his parents spoke Persian at home, Farsi. And he grew up, his native tongue was Farsi. But his father propelled him into knowledge into the acquisition of knowledge through beautiful, beautiful creative steps that I will share with you in the khutbah. He taught him Arabic and he taught him the deen, and mashallah, Imam ibn Jarir al-Tabari, you know, excelled in both, right? Imam ibn Jarir started leading prayer at the age of 8, which, by the way, answers, many of you ask me this question all the time. Is it okay to have our children lead the prayers when there are adults? Of course, the answer is yes. If they make wudu and they know how to lead the prayer and they understand the basic premises of salah, it is actually good to encourage your young children to lead you in prayer, right? Ibn Jarir used to lead his family in prayer at home at the age of 8, leads his own father. And at the age of 9, he started studying hadith. Again, all at a very young age. Imam Muhammad ibn Jarir al-Tabari authored 2 of the most seminal works that really determined the direction and the course of Islamic knowledge and learning over the centuries. Okay, now this is the 3rd Hijri century. You need to understand that. Imam ibn Jarir authored his great book, Tafsir al-Tabari, which is the very first commentary on the Quran ever written. And all the works that came afterwards, you know, Ibn Kathir, Qurtubi, all those guys, they used Tabari's work as a foundation to build their own tafsir books. Right? In addition to that, Imam al-Tabari authored this remarkably seminal work on Islamic history that is called Tarikh al-Umam wal-Muluk, the history of nations and kings, in which he told a tremendous amount of beautiful stories that I will share some with you today, inshallah. Imam al-Tabari traveled across the Muslim world from one city to the other. He got so busy trying to learn and study that he never had a chance to get married and start his own family. He felt that that would be a distraction from his mission. I mean, every person has their own preferences. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal got married at the age of 40, very, very late. Imam al-Tabari did not get married in the first place. Imam al-Shafi'i got married at a very young age. It doesn't matter. Every person in your journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you need to decide for yourself what can propel you forward and what can hold you back, and then follow that on your own, right? Even though I need to say that it is the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ to get married, for sure. But the Imam he made that choice because he was traveling a lot and he realized that he just cannot settle in one place and build a family. It would be unjust and unfair to his wife and his children. The point that I'm trying to make here, brothers and sisters, is that Imam al-Tabari became this great scholar to the extent that one of the historians, Al-Khatib al-Baghdadi radiyallahu anhu, says that al-Tabari used to write an average of 40 pages every day. In terms of authorship, you know, he's writing books, right? He's producing books. Every day he writes 40 pages. I mean, you ask one of the Muslims today, write your own diary or just like a short paragraph for what you went through during the day. You talk to your children, write the conclusion of an experiment. It's the most difficult thing for people to write today. It's very difficult for people to write, and certainly difficult for people to read. They don't want to read books. They don't want to write. They want to listen. Maybe listen to a lecture, that's okay. But they don't want to read. And they don't want to write. Okay? Reading and writing come first, and then after that you can listen all you want. But this is how you build the desire for knowledge, and this is how you expand your horizons, reading and writing. Don't ever forget about writing. 40 pages a day the Imam used to write. on average. Okay? What was the secret of Imam al-Tabari? And why do I bring up his story today, in the few weeks leading up to historical elections in the United States? Imam al-Tabari became so successful because of a pact, an agreement that his father had with him. Okay? Now, here's the story, the background story. You have to understand the historical context. Imam al-Tabari grew up in a very divided Muslim ummah. It was the second phase of the Abbasi dynasty, al-Dawla al-Abbasiyya al-Thaniya, they call it. The ummah was divided on ethnic grounds. Was the Persians, the Arabs, the North Africans, the Berbers, the Afghans, all of them were establishing these little kingdoms that have a nominal allegiance to the Abbasi throne in Baghdad, but they were all virtually independent. Okay? The ummah was divided on madhab lines. The Shafi'is and the Hanafis were slaughtering each other in Iraq. The Malikis and the Hanafi and the Malikis and the Hanbalis were hurting each other in North Africa. The ummah was divided on madhab lines. The ummah was divided on ethnic lines. The ummah was divided politically in a very, very significant way. And here's what Jarir, the father of Imam al-Tabari, told him. He said, "You're very smart, and I would like to sponsor you for the rest of your life. I will pay for your travels. I will pay for your education. I will pay for your learning. You don't have to ever work to make a living." Again, think about that. A father who sees that his son is very, very prominent and excelling in the field of learning. He's a good father. Fathers that actually spend time with their children, they'll be able to tell. Fathers that think their job in the world is financial support and that's it, they cannot detect such things. Fathers who leave at 7 in the morning and come back 7 in the evening after the kids have already gone to sleep and only sees them occasionally in the weekends, and they think that that's okay because mom is raising the children at home. That is path to destruction right there. Statistics say fathers who are heavily involved, and they micromanage the lives of their children, the kids are 75% more likely to be successful. 75%. When fathers are involved. And it takes a father who's involved with a good eye to realize that his son can have a great future. And I need to further that. Many of us, we can see the signs in our children. My kid can become a really great engineer one day. They love to use their hands. They love to assemble and disassemble. You have to have a keen eye to see that in your own child, right? A mother who sees that, her daughter is very good in rhetoric. She makes arguments. She's confident when she speaks publicly. We need to help her maybe one day become a lawyer. I don't know. But good parents are supposed to look for these signs in their children and find a way to sponsor them. Get them involved in good science clubs, or to, join a rhetoric club, or, tutor them extensively in that field that can actually help them, right? Imam al-Tabari's father, Jarir, did exactly that. He told his son, "I will sponsor you. For the rest of your life, you don't have to work. You don't have to find a job. I will always send you money, and I will write in my will. I will write in my will that there is this share of my wealth that will be spent on your education and your learning. But I only have one condition. I only have one condition, and I need you to promise me." So young Muhammad said to his father Jarir, "Father, you just dictate the conditions. I will never argue with you." His father said, "I don't want you to be affiliated with any madhab. I don't want you to fanatically join any particular madhab. I want you to be a true student of knowledge, a global Muslim citizen that travels from one city to the other in order to learn. And I want you to study with scholars of every single madhab." And that is precisely what the Imam did. He studied with the Shafi'is. He studied with the Shafi'is in Iraq. And Iraq was dominated, northern Iraq was dominated by the Shafi'is. He studied with the Hanbalis in southern Iraq. He studied with the Malikis in North Africa. He studied with the Hanafis in Damascus and Palestine. He studied with the Ja'faris, with the Shia al-Imamiyya. He studied with their scholars as well. And that some of the historians say this is one of the reasons why he called himself Abu Ja'far, because of his love for Ahlul Bayt. He truly became a global Muslim citizen regardless of the sectarian lines of madhab that are tearing the Muslim world apart. So his father achieved two things. Number one, he provided his son with enough money to cover him his entire life and to finance his desire to learn Islam. And number two, he made sure that his son is not going to be sectarian, will truly become a global Muslim citizen. That is 1,200 years ago, brothers and sisters. You have to understand. These are modern notions, but that particular family of Imam Ibn Jarir al-Tabari practiced that 1,200 years ago. And that is why the story continues to be relevant. Otherwise, what's the point of talking about Imam Ibn Jarir al-Tabari, Sahib al-Tafsir, talking about him today when we have a couple of weeks before the elections? What's the point? No, that is exactly the point. That he was aware and conscious of such matters at a very young age. What did that achieve? What did that achieve? It made Imam al-Tabari open-minded enough and open-hearted enough to travel across the Muslim world to study with so many people. And with that attitude, he connected cultures and he connected communities and he acted as a bridge. And that is exactly what I want you to think about when it comes to your children. Our children that are growing up in America do not care about the issues that their immigrant parents care about. And we would like for our children to become global Muslim citizens and they care about American Muslim issues. Yes, they still care about Palestine. They still talk about Kashmir. They still talk about police brutality, but that is not their primary focus. Their primary focus is to engage the challenges of their American Muslim reality so that they don't become irrelevant as you and I are. And the great lesson that resides here, brothers and sisters, is how this man was able to teach his child this beautiful endeavor. Care about every cause, but bring all these causes together and become a true citizen of the ummah. Care about the matters of the ummah and not the matters of one particular ethnic group or one particular geographical origin. Become a true citizen of Ummatul Islam, and that goes beyond Palestine and beyond Kashmir and beyond America itself. It is all of that combined. It is all of that combined. And if we were to ensure that the next generation of Muslims has an impact, it may not happen, it definitely is not going to happen this upcoming elections. I promise you that. The Muslim community will have no impact whatsoever this upcoming elections. Maybe not even the next 5 or 10 cycles. But I'm hoping, inshallah ta'ala, in 20, 25 years, there is going to be a generation of global Muslim citizens that live in America, that are able to bring all these matters and all these affairs together. But how do we achieve that? Again, Jarir al-Tabari sponsored his child for life. And I would like for you to do the same, brothers and sisters. Don't be like those parents who come to us when it's too late, when their kids are, forgive me, sleeping around, when their daughters are getting pregnant, when their sons are completely lost. And they come to us when things are too late and they say, please help me and help my children. And we tell them, sorry, it's too late now. You should have started 10 years ago. You should have started 10 years ago. See, this is what happens. You spend money on everything. You spend money on sports. You spend money on electronic gadgets. You buy your children gifts. You take them on vacations. Food, clothes. But when it comes to Islamic education, all of a sudden we get very stingy as a community. I don't get it. And then we keep complaining that that Islamic education is not really effective. It is not efficient. We keep complaining about the quality that we are getting from the masajid and we're getting from Islamic schools. Why? Catholic schools charge parents $1,600 and $1,700 a month. And that's why everyone keeps saying, oh, Catholic education is amazing. All Muslims, they would like, if they can afford it, they will all send their kids to Catholic schools. Why? It's not rocket science. They charge you close to $2,000 a month. When Islamic schools charge kids $400 a month, there's a big stack of financial assistance applications. People who drive Mercedes, wallahi, they drive a Mercedes and they come request a discount with regards to their kids' Islamic education. The priorities are lost. And we continue to complain as a Muslim community, why is this happening to us? Well, you know exactly why. You're just oblivious. You're turning your eyes away from the truth. It's just obliviousness. This man, Jarir al-Tabari, gave his child two things, and those two things empowered him. He sponsored him for life in terms of Islamic education, and he taught him how to be a global Muslim citizen, to care about all the issues and not one madhab or one ethnic group. We ought to do the same thing with our children. If they were to have an impact on the US elections, maybe inshallah in 6 or 7 cycles. We have to do the same exact thing. And the path to doing this is for us to sponsor our children in Islamic programs. If you do not have your child enrolled in a program, brothers and sisters, wallahi, one day you'll wake up after it's too late. You will wake up after it's too late. You need to spend the money, spend the time, spend the effort, because it takes so much. It takes so much to actually achieve that. I mean, parents who are so heavily involved in the Islamic education of their children are still struggling. They're still struggling and they're still not sure. There's still no certainty. Imagine those who are doing nothing. What do you expect is going to happen to your children? If they are not just going to absorb the teachings of Islam the way you did in the old country. It's not going to happen. It has to be an active process, and that is what Jarir did to his son Muhammad, and that is why he became the great Imam al-Tabari that you and I talk about today. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us our sins and to establish us with firmness on His path. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the enlightenment, the understanding and the will to invest in the education of our children. Allahumma ameen. Brothers and sisters, raise your hands and speak to Allah from the heart. ادعوا الله وأنتم موقنون بالإجابة. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعين به ونستهديه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا. وأصلي وأسلم على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين وقائد الغر الميامين محمد الصادق الوعد الأمين. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى أصحابه وأتباعه ومن اهتدى بهديه وعمل بسنته إلى يوم الدين وارض عنا معهم بفضلك وكرمك أرحم الراحمين. اللهم آمين. Inshallah, brothers, if you can just move to my left just a little bit so that we're able to make some more room for the latecomers, inshallah, I would appreciate that. Jazakumullah khair. And if you see any space in front of you, please fill it up. Today, alhamdulillah, we're talking about the upcoming elections in a bit of a different way. And I said that the American Muslim immigrant community continues to focus on the affairs of the back home. And we've been fighting that for years, and we realize that that's a fool's errand, because you cannot go into a man's heart and say, I want you to change your priorities. I want you to change the things that you care about. It's impossible to achieve that. So I want us to embrace that. Let us embrace who we are. The immigrants embrace who they are. The Arabs, they care about their Arab issues, and the South Asians and the Turks and everyone, they care about their own issues. Let us acknowledge that. But let us at least make sure that our children that are being raised in America will become global Muslim citizens. They don't just care about the issues of their parents back home. They do care about that for sure, but they also care about their American Muslim realities. And this is the only way that generation of global Muslim citizens will have an impact on US politics or whatever it is that we care about in this world. Otherwise, we continue to be voiceless, we continue to be divided, we continue to be irrelevant as an American Muslim community. And if we keep losing our children, if we keep losing the American Muslim youth, they will never be that generation that can propel our community forward. And alhamdulillah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I actually think that our American Muslim community is doing much better today in terms of caring for the youth, in terms of establishing their identity, in terms of building programs for them. A lot better than things used to be like 10 or 15 years ago. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. We've made significant steps forward, but I still feel like a lot more needs to be done. We need to invest. We need to invest in the education of our children. If you're married and you have 3 children, you want to make sure that every single one of them is enrolled in some kind of an Islamic program. It has to be done. You need to invest the money, the time and effort. When your kids are in soccer, you take them to soccer practice 2 or 3 times a week. You go on the tournaments over the weekend. We spend hours and hours and hours, and we spend money to get it done because it has to be done. Why are we not exerting the same effort and spending the same money in order to invest in the education, the Islamic education of our own children? And I cited the story of Ibn Jarir al-Tabari today, because that is exactly what his father did to him. He told him, I will sponsor your Islamic education for life. You never have to work, okay? You never have to work. There will always be money for you to study and travel to study, if you promise me one thing. And what is that? That you will never become a sectarian Muslim. That you will not just follow one madhab and ignore the other madhab. Imam al-Tabari, Ibn Jarir al-Tabari, Sahib al-Tafsir, was one of very few scholars of his time that never identified with a madhab. And that got him in so much trouble, and I'll share with you that in a second, right? But I wanted to comment on one tiny little thing. Imam al-Tabari traveled a lot, as I demonstrated to you. From Iran to Iraq, to southern Iraq, to Damascus, to Beirut, and then he goes into Egypt, to Mecca, and then back to Khurasan, and from Khurasan back to Tabaristan in Persia, and then back to Baghdad, and he lived and died, the remaining years of his life in Baghdad. Baghdad, حاضرة العلم. Baghdad was the qibla of knowledge. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bring it back, to assume that same rightful status one day. But Baghdad used to be that qibla of knowledge and learning and civilization and enlightenment across the world. So he, ended up in Baghdad because that's the place where a scholar should be. Okay? And one of those travels, Imam al-Tabari was in Mecca, and he was very young. And I'm just sharing with you the value of traveling. We need to make sure that our kids also travel to get exposed. Go to Umrah, go to educational, exchange student programs. They need to travel to get themselves exposed, right? Imam, at the age of 16, he was in Mecca, studying with some of the shuyukh over there, sponsored by his father, right? And then he was at the Haram, and an elderly man from Khurasan, he said, قال الشيخ الخراساني, an elderly man from Khurasan stood up and said, I lost 10,000 dinars. Please, if you find them anywhere, please bring them to me. And by the way, luqata, when you find something lost on the street, like you find a $20 bill or something like that, in Islam, it's halal to take it. Finders keepers kind of thing. In Islam, it's halal to take it. If it's impossible to verify the origin or who it belongs to, it's halal to take it. And this is true all over the world, except in which city? Except in Mecca. It is not halal to pick up the luqata in Mecca. You need to leave it back where it is. And somebody else, maybe the person that it belongs to, will come back and pick it up. You never take something that is not yours in the city of Mecca. You just leave it where it is. So this elderly man basically said, I lost 1,000 dinars. Please, if you find them, bring them to me. So Imam al-Tabari says, and he was a young man at this point, he says, I saw this very, very old person came up to him and he said, you know what, the people of Mecca are poor. If you but promise a small reward for the person that brings you the money, there'll likely be a better incentive for them to bring you the money. So the man from Khurasan asked him, okay, how much do you suggest? So the elderly man said, well, I don't know, maybe 1/10, about 100 dinars. And the man said, no, I will never do that. I need all the money. Now, al-Tabari is watching this and he's thinking, of all people, why did this old guy go up to the man that lost his money and suggested the reward? Maybe he found the money and he feels guilty, so he's trying to get the man from Khurasan to offer a reward so that he brings him back the money and get the reward. So he followed him to his house. And at his house, he heard him speak to his wife. Her name was Lubaba. And he said, Ya Lubaba, the man to which the money belongs, to whom the money belongs, refused to offer any awards. I don't know what to do now. I can't get any sleep with this money in our house. And the Tabari's outside, he's overhearing all this stuff. And so the woman said to her husband, we've lived for 50 years in poverty, just take the money, we invest it, we make a little money, and then we pay him back later. So he said, Wallahi, I will never do that. At the age of 80, and you want me to feed myself and my kids from haram? I will never do that. So she said, okay, go tomorrow and offer him to make a smaller reward. So the following day he goes, and he asked the man, how about make the reward 50 dinars instead of 100? He says, Allahi, I will never do that. I need the entire amount. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. So he goes home and he tells his wife, and she said, how about tomorrow go and ask him to offer a much smaller reward, even 10 dinars. can get us out of this poverty. So he goes back and the man still refused. I want my 1,000 dinars as is. SubhanAllah. Now al-Tabari is walking around observing this whole thing. See, when you travel, you learn from life experiences, from things that you see, not just knowledge from books, right? When you travel, you get exposed to amazing and remarkable things. So al-Tabari is just so amused and he's watching this unfold before his own eyes. And then the elderly man who found the money finally gave up. And he told the man from Khurasan, listen, your money is at my house, just come with me and take it and let's be done with this. So the man was so happy, he went to his house and he gave him the 1,000 dinars. When he took the 1,000 dinars, he said, Wallahi, I inherited $3,000 dinars from my father. And my father said in his will, keep 2,000 dinars and donate 1,000 dinars to an honest person who's struggling financially. And I cannot think of another man in Mecca that is more deserving of 1,000 dinars than you. He took the 1,000 dinars from him and he gave it back to him. But what is the difference now? The difference that the second time it was halal. It's haram to keep it, but it's halal to take it as a gift. Now al-Tabari is at this point, he says, and by the way, al-Tabari tells this story in Tarikh al-Umam al-Muluk, his own book, the history of nations and kings. And he says, I was in tears when I saw this, and my trust in humanity was revived. My trust in the decency of humanity was revived at that point. So I cried, and the man of the house heard me. So he invited me to come, and he said, I've noticed that you've been, stalking me for the last 3 days, and you must have seen everything that happened. He said, Wallahi, I did not mean any offense. It was just a beautiful thing that I watched. He said, okay, sit down. And he invited all of his households, his wife, her 2 sisters, and all of his daughters. And he only has daughters, by the way. All 9 of them, plus Imam al-Tabari, that's 10. He sat them all down, and he took the 1,000 dinars and gave every one of them 10. Imam al-Tabari says, I don't deserve this money. He says, no. You have been nothing but good fortune for us. I'd rather keep the 900 and you keep, for my family, and you keep the 100. So Imam al-Tabari says, فَأَنْفَقْتُ الْمَالَ عَلَى طَلَبِ الْعِلْمِ سَنَتَيْنِ. I spent the 100 dinars on learning and studying for the next 2 years. He did not have to take money from his father for the next 2 years. Again, see, sponsorship. He was sponsored. And somebody found a way to spend money on him for the next 2 years. He was sponsored by 100 dinars that he received from this man, subhanAllah. And this is how Imam al-Tabari led his life, brothers and sisters. Moving from one city to the other, learning, traveling, growing as a human being and as a Muslim until he became the great scholar that you and I know today. Later in his life, he got in trouble because he made a statement about Imam ibn Hanbal. And he says Ahmad ibn Hanbal was a muhaddith. He was someone that collected the hadith. He was not a faqih. He disagreed wholeheartedly with the Hanbali madhab. Now the Hanbalis of Iraq got extremely upset with him, and he had this, very bitter, sort of altercation with their leader. His name was Abu Bakr ibn Dawood. He was the leader of all the Hanabila in Baghdad, and they put him in house arrest. And when he passed away, they refused to even allow his family to have his own funeral, and he was buried in his own house, in his own bedroom. SubhanAllah. There's a price to be paid sometimes. To be open, to bring people together rather than dividing people. Sometimes it's much easier to say the things that divide people. And there's a huge price when you say things that bring people together. They will call you unapologetic. They will call you a sellout. There is a difficulty to be endured, but the impact of Imam al-Tabari, brothers and sisters, continues to live amongst us until today. And I hope, inshallah ta'ala, and I pray that we will find value from that story when it comes to treating our own children and investing in the future of our own children and preparing the next generation of American Muslims to become truly global citizens that will have an impact on the lives of people in this country, and that can propel our community forward. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us our sins, to establish us with firmness on His path. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to fill our hearts with compassion, to fill our hearts with humility. I ask Allah to bring us closer to each other, as members of the same community, to cast aside our differences and disagreements and focus on that which brings us together. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us among those who invest in the education and the learning and the growth of their own children. And as He gathered us here in this shape and form, I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to gather all of us in His Jannah on the day of judgment. Allahumma ameen. Allahumma taqabbal minna innaka anta as-sami'ul alim wa tub alayna innaka anta at-tawwabur rahim. Allahumma inna nas'aluka al-khayra kullahu ajilahu wa ajilahu wa na'udhu bika min ash-sharri kullihi ajilihi wa ajilihi. Allahumma ya rabbana ansurna ala anfusina واجمعنا على قلب أتقى واحد فينا وبارك في أخوتنا يا رب العالمين. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات المسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات إنك سميع قريب مجيب الدعوات يا رب العالمين. وأقم الصلاة إن الصلاة كانت على المؤمنين كتابا موقوتا.